What up? And welcome back to Whatever Waits Live on WoodSports.com. Easy, Small Rex, Young Chris, Nicholas Koloff. Next up is a man I didn't want to bother too much because I know he has a family. But with the draft coming up, I had to hit him up. He's been killing it with the articles too. My guy, John Maakaron from SI, joined the show. Long time no see, man. How you been?
Man, fellas, you can bother me anytime. Just hit me up and we'll join you, have some good time. Boys, good to see you. You guys have been having a good time. Opening day, clearly a success. Spencer, got to ask you, if you don't mind, sources telling me you got to type MILFs with ponytails. You figured it out. Once you got a taste of the forbidden fruit, did that get you motivated to get back in the gym so much? I'm definitely proud of you for getting more physical. I'm curious, did that motivate you to kind of keep grinding, keep pushing? Because that's a big motivator for a lot of people.
I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I'm on opening day for sure, and I would say that situation was one of them. Hey, but if it's there, it's, who am I to say no? Who am I to say no?
Absolutely, that's what opening day is all about. I mean, most people in between breaks look at stats, look at what's going on with the game, kind of looking at some wars of the Tigers. Nope, Spencer, my man's trying to mac on all the MILFs downtown. I don't blame you, but that's what opening day is all about, my man. Hey, gotta ask, did you get some digits? Did you take care of business? What's going on?
John, I'm a gentleman. I don't kiss and tell. I leave that part of my life private, but I'll just say I had a good night. And appreciate you for joining us. And I'm not opening day. I like to put that in the past. We'll forget about all that. But we got to talk about this draft because it's coming up, and we don't know what's going to happen with that first pick of the Detroit Lions. They've met with Kool-Aid McKinstry again now, and they seem to really like him. They seem to really enjoy the thought of him being a part of this secondary. Is Kool-Aid at 29, is that as a lock as it gets for Brad Holmes' draft picks?
If he's available, I think it's going to be real interesting. Clearly, everybody is fascinated by the fact that Brad Holmes did attend Alabama's pro day, so we got an up-close look at Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terry and Arnold, probably the kicker. But I think a player like McKinstry is really interesting because he could be a player that you could select and then have him develop and not have to play him right away. Look, the interesting stat about him that kind of is a little bit concerning is he didn't have a ton of interceptions at Alabama, but I think what the Lions would like is I think he's a player that could develop in Aaron Glenn's scheme. So I think that you have the luxury when you have a great roster that you can take a player like similarly to what they did last year with Broderick Martin. They have a history of taking guys that they feel like, hey, if he can learn the system, then we can put him in plug and play him down the road. And I think that the cornerback spot is one in which it's so tough to learn right away. And he's such a good player. I think that the film will justify if the Lions take him. But I just think that potentially the teams just above the Lions might just really have the edge in terms of getting him. If he lands at number 29, I think the Lions would definitely consider strongly taking Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Now, speaking of corners, you put out something recently about Carlton Davis getting a little bit of backlash from former teammates. What was up with that? I didn't get to read the entire article because we were live on air when it came out, or got sent to me, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. In browsing, sometimes you learn about kind of, I know locally people will report on what is said nationally about the players on the roster. Well, I also like to learn what former players or what old teammates or those that do podcasts from teams where guys come from, what they say. And look, no one's going to know Ian Beckles, a former NFL guard who played 25 years ago, but he does a podcast, and, I checked it out. It's, really interesting. It's called In the Trenches, and he was reviewing the moves made by the Buccaneers and the general manager, and he said that, the Bucs aren't going to miss Carlton Davis. Felt like, Carlton Davis gave up a lot of big plays, far too many for a player of his caliber, and he said that the Buccaneers aren't going to miss him, and he pointed out that in certain times when Carlton Davis was not in the lineup, the Bucs defense played better. Now, this could be, obviously taken with a little grain of salt, being that potentially this is a pro Buccaneers podcast. But many people that read the article looked at it and said, you know what? Maybe when you look at in totality the evaluation of Carlton Davis last year, he's a man-to-man corner, and sometimes in a zone scheme with the Buccaneers, that may just put a player not in the best position to succeed. But when you look at it fairly, Carlton Davis is a player that will be an upgrade over what you had, but I don't think he's going to be the lockdown number one corner that everybody thinks he is. He said it. He said all the right things. He believes he can shut down an entire side of the field. That is a tall task for any cornerback, but I do think he's competitive, and I think he'll add a certain level of bravado, and I think he's a solid player. But, some old Buccaneers weren't too upset to lose Carlton Davis to the Lions.
I want to keep it real quick on the cornerback stuff before we turn away from that, because you put out a phenomenal piece last week about Isaiah Johnson visiting with the Detroit Lions, him going out to dinner with them. I was kind of interested in the prospect, hometown kid. You also put something out today about Andrew Phillips. I guess, what were some of your takeaways from those two gentlemen that officially met the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people pay attention to, is when the Lions schedule top 30 visits, kind of means a little bit more interest. And look, the Lions have to pay attention to the cornerback spot. You look at their tape and what the Lions are looking for clearly, and it was said by Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell at the owners' meetings, they're looking for guys that can play man-to-man to give Aaron Glenn a little bit more options in regards to some calls that he can make defensively. Last year, guys, you clearly saw it. Jerry Jacobs and Cam Sutton just weren't going to cut it. They gave up far too many yards. And I know the coaching staff is not going to hammer the players publicly. But behind the scenes, you clearly understood that it was a situation in which Aaron Glenn had to pressure more. He had to make up for the fact that the cornerbacks were simply not good enough in coverage consistently enough to help this football team out. And so the Lions are doing their due diligence. They're looking at players that are tall, physical, have the opportunity to potentially be versatile. And here's what is interesting is that, look at a player like Ifeatu Melifonwu, was a player that was a cornerback, ended up being a safety. So for the Lions, they're looking for versatile players that can play multiple spots. And you're looking at, you heard it earlier this offseason too, the Lions potentially are going to play Brian Branch some reps at safety while Amik Robertson learns and acclimates to Detroit. He could probably play a lot of reps at the nickel cornerback spot. So the Lions are looking for players that in their meetings, when you look at their tape, they're versatile. They can play outside, they can play the slot, they're physical, and most importantly, they have strengths. When you look at their PFF grades, they have strengths in man-to-man coverage.
Yeah, they love that versatility for sure. And versatility. And you brought up Ife Melifonwu, and looking back at the Carlton Davis, when Ife was brought into this defense, he was more of the Aaron Glenn type of guy. He was the guy that Aaron Glenn wanted back there, and we saw the numbers, attest to that, where he's getting these sacks and he's making things happen. Do you think Carlton Davis, who also seems like an Aaron Glenn type of guy, like the guy that Aaron Glenn wants out there, like you said, man press, long, physical guy, he could have a similar impact to this defense, just fitting that scheme and fitting what Aaron Glenn wants to do, similar to what Ife did when he was brought in?
Yeah, Ifeatu Melifonwu, man, really a player that embodies what the Lions are about. Draft and develop. 3 years ago, a player that maybe wasn't as heralded as a lot of the first picks that Brad Holmes made. But look, he stuck with it. He battled some injuries. And for him, it was tough because he keeps getting his position switched. First, it's cornerback. Then it's going back to safety. Then because of injury, having to play cornerback again. So you look at it now, when he got his opportunity in 23, he made the most of it. And you guys all saw what he was able to bring to the table. Physical, could really get home on the blitz, and really has a lot of swagger. Really earned himself a starter's role alongside Kirby Joseph. And now you look at Carlton Davis. What's mostly going to help these defensive backs is not the skill that they bring. Look, Amik Robertson, you hope that Emmanuel Mosley is going to be healthy. What most is going to help these defensive backs is if you improve the defensive line. When you don't bring the pressure consistently, and look, we all expect Aiden Hutchinson to take another step forward in year 3. You hope that DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport and James Houston really fit well with this defensive line. When you bring pressure more often, it makes the cornerback's job that much easier. And I think that what the Lions are looking at is, can we get coverage strong enough that until the defensive line does and handles their business, if we can just get a player to cover just that little bit more, just that half a second more, that can mean the world of difference. And I think for this Detroit Lions team, it's going to matter most what that defensive line does. If they can bring the pressure, it's going to make the secondary look a hell of a lot better than the talent would suggest.
John, with these, I guess, player meetings, what are your true takeaways given like past meetings? Obviously, they do the inside the den stuff during the offseason after the draft, and you get to see them have these meetings, these players. Do you think that kind of confirms like these guys might end up being picked for the Detroit Lions? Or I guess the track record wise, is there anybody they haven't met with they still picked?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You look at the way in which these top 30 meetings go, it confirms or lets the organization know, hey, is this a player we got to worry about? You looked at what happened with Tavondre Sweat. You saw a player that was really regarded as potential day 2 pick, getting a lot of interest early in mock drafts, maybe even to the Lions. Look what happens to him. His personality, and he has a legal matter now pending that could make some teams shy away. So these top 30 picks, these top 30 visits are real integral. They let it allows the team to kind of talk with the player, learn more about their background, learn about what their beliefs are. And for everybody that's listening, the real test that the Lions are looking for is, does this guy love football? They're going to ask questions. Hey, what do you do in the off time? Are you going to go party with Spencer? Or are you going to hit the books? Are you guys going to go and appear on every show that invites you? Or are you going to focus and love the game of football, which is what we want? They want guys that love the game of football that also can adapt. They'll throw some things in terms of film or questions or some challenges to these guys and see how they adapt. And they want guys that they feel can learn the game and learn that, hey, when we adapt a scheme or we adapt a game plan, can this guy pick it up at the fastest rate? So these visits are important. And I think also what's important too was what happened today earlier, the local pro day, where you get a chance to work out a bunch of guys that are local, and a bunch of Michigan guys were there. It was interesting to see as well. So
Bunch of
these
local
names,
guys.
local guys, it's fun because we're starting to kind of
Crazy,
wonder.
Holmes.
But guys, Brad Holmes' big draft board is huge. It's going to have a lot of players. And I think that, like everybody, many people are wondering what they're going to do, but you can sit back and be comfortable that when the time comes and Brad Holmes gets to make his pick, he's going to make some stellar picks for this football team. I'm excited.
Spinny, you had some stuff you're dying to ask him.
I did, Doc. You were talking about, they want guys that love football, and that is a big thing that they look for in this draft. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. A guy that they got in the draft, they got as a steal of the draft, that exemplifies everything they want in a player and is the personification of grit and Detroit Lions' new culture, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's still waiting on a contract. Have you heard any rumblings about what's going on with his contract? Because we all assume that they're going to get this deal done and he's going to be a Lion for the foreseeable future, but why has that not been announced yet?
Yeah, I know, right? Everybody, look, Schefter appeared on a podcast, and he's like, look, Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you want to take care of them right away. But look, guys, these things at this level are going to take time. And the reason why you haven't heard is probably what you would suspect. They're negotiating. Amon-Ra is going to want 28, 29. I'm sure his agent is going to start very high and years and guaranteed money. And, the Lions on the similar and have to find a way to fit this contract within the salary cap. And what tends to hold these things up is it's the finer point in terms of guaranteed money, how much the length of the contract is, how they can get it to where maybe the first or second year cap hit is not as large. How many void years do you add on to it? You got to also figure out too that at the same time you're negotiating a deal for Jared Goff. Look, the question mark is going to lie. Would you pay Amon-Ra St. Brown $28.5 million? I think that gets me a little bit uncomfortable. The number I'm kind of comfortable with is kind of like 25, 26. You're talking, if you start elevating the numbers there, that's going to be very interesting, because then the expectation Amon-Ra, when you still got Jameson Williams on this team, you still got a team, got a guy that when you see what he could potentially to $28.5 million or more a year. So they're hammering out the details. I would say that the contract that for sure will get done is Jared Goff. I would essentially that the contract after would be St. Brown. But these things I would suspect that, look, odds are that they're both going to get done. But man, it's a tough negotiation when you see the numbers and setting the market and years and all those kind of things that go into it. So don't panic, don't worry. Look, you just saw, I think I saw a picture of St. Brown chilling with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. He's having the time of his life. He got a massive performance, I think $750,000, 750K. He's happy. He's loving his life, and he'll let the agent handle his business. But these big money deals, they just sometimes don't happen so quickly.
John, I know much like myself, you don't mind being the bad guy, the bearer of truth, if you will. Do you think is there a possibility they don't pay him that money?
No, I mean, look, the message that has been sent, I would be surprised, because here's the thing. When you look at the guys that would deserve it in terms of extensions, what have you been? First, to me, if you don't pay your own and you're holding all this cash, I'm going to be pissed off, because you didn't get the top end free agents. You're not trading for T. Higgins. You're not going out there and lighting up the world in free agency, because the messaging has been, we draft and develop. And when Amon-Ra St. Brown is clearly the embodiment of what this organization is all about, a guy that lives football, loves it, is a guy that is never happy. He's mad when he drops a single ball in practice. He embodies everything. He's great with the media. There's no chance they don't give him that money. It's just going to be the finer details of a couple $100,000 here or there and length of contract. There's no way. How do you send the message to the locker room that your best performer doesn't get paid? But the question is, you can't make him the highest paid NFL wide receiver. You can't get up there in $29-30 million. But I wouldn't be surprised if the agent asked for it. 4 years, 120. And then also, too, the big number, too, that can be a sticking point that a lot of people don't talk about is the guaranteed money. All these guys are okay with, $25-26 million, but it's how much cash guaranteed am I going to get? And sometimes that number could be a number that the Lions don't want to guarantee. So it can be very challenging to hammer out the finer details, but St. Brown will be taken care of. Eventually speaking, I think by the time training camp starts, both of those deals will be done.
Nick in the sound booth here, John. If the Doc was in Brad Holmes' shoes for this draft that is in the home city of Detroit, are you going up in the first round and using some future capital to go up and getting a blue chip type prospect? Or are you sitting back at 29 or perhaps even trading back from there? What would you do, John?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm aggressive. I want the best players. So if Jackson Powers Johnson is your guy, it's all going to be predicated on their board. If they feel like, hey, this guy that we target, if it's a wide receiver, it's Keon Coleman. If it's a player that they fall in love with, if it's Kool-Aid McKinstry, and they say, hey, we need this guy, and they want to fight for it, I have no doubt about it. I would move up and trade for a blue chipper. I think this football team is a football team that needs to also pay attention to the aging offensive line. And you look at it and you say, wow, 3 linemen in their 30s. And you have Frank Ragnow, who you probably can assume is now year to year with his health status. You're going to need 4 potential starters in the next couple years along the offensive line. And if you fall in love with Jackson Powers Johnson and you think you're going to potentially lose out on him, you go out and you do it. So look, the crazy part for me is if Brad Holmes gets shifty and does those kind of things on day 2, that's a lot of writing. That's a lot of maneuvering. So to me, for my own selfish reasons, I just want a safe pick at number 29 and somebody that we all can agree upon can be a developing player that's solid. We all can get home safely. But if he moves up and then potentially adds another pick in the first round, that makes for a long night. So selfishly, I hope it's safe and not as boisterous. But in terms of the team, Brad Holmes, make this football team better, because, again, if you can add some depth pieces, if, down the road in November and December, a player gets hurt and you plug in a rookie that you've developed over the last 3-4 months, hey, that can be a big bonus. You saw what Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta were able to do as rookies. Now we can raise the standard too, that, hey, some of these rookies, when called upon, can have a chance to get a spell start or have an opportunity to contribute.
Who would be your dream pick? If they stay at 29 and everything's, obviously it's like, oh yeah, Terrion Arnold, but a realistic dream pick for you at 29, who would it be? Who would make you walk out of the first day of draft day as happy as you could be?
Yeah, what would make me pimp dance like Spencer at opening day would be Keon Coleman. It would be a former Spartan that, look, guy that as a Spartan ripped my heart out that
Yep.
wasn't able to stay the full time. And I guess I understood. People told me, Doc, chill out, relax. It wasn't a state of the program thing. He wasn't mad because Mel Tucker was on his phone all the time, acting like Spencer. He was a guy that he wanted to stay for a couple years, develop, and then eventually head south. That was the plan. But then when you see him flaunting what he was able to do at Florida State, oh my God, could you imagine Keon Coleman, Jamison Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs? That's box office. That justifies raising the ticket prices on all the fans, and that helps this offense become unstoppable. So I literally would have to change my pants if Keon Coleman is the draft pick.
That would be amazing. I would love that. And that is what they told us, right? They were like, oh, it was his idea was going to go down south after a couple of years, but also like I wouldn't want to play in a Jay Johnson offense either. That dude is a buffoon, yeah. So I couldn't blame him for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Michigan State, man. What I'm hoping this new head coach now restores, some dignity back to the program. Mel Tucker, $90 million contract, and he couldn't keep it in his pants. But It goes to show you, it's undefeated. It'll put some people back in the gym. It'll make people dance on opening day, get drunk. It's undefeated, man. Some people choose coaching and watching film at night. Others choose phone sex. I mean, that's what happened.
Coaching is coochie.
It's too powerful. The power of the coochie, man. It's too powerful.
John, man, I appreciate you joining us, man. Nick has one real quick one.
Where will John the Doc Mack be for draft night in Detroit? I know you said that you were going to be writing, but do you have any special plans for the draft? Or are you just going to be getting stories out right away?
Yeah, no doubt. So we have the opportunity to go down and be in the crowd. That's crazy. So I'm going to send other writers to the pit, to the downtown area. Me, I like to hunker down. I'll be at Allen Park. I'll be watching with the other writers. I'll be in the mix, talking shit, trying to, piss off all the other writers and tell them how great I am. Yeah. So what's fun about the draft is it's unpredictable. It's a fun atmosphere when you're in the room. I've been there now 3-4 times. You get to watch the draft. You get to experience it with everybody else. And when stuff happens, we're obviously going to be checking Twitter, checking everything that's going on, and to see if Brad Holmes does indeed make a deal. But, clearly checking my phone, seeing what all the sources blow up my phone, see who's going to lie to me to my face or put stuff out there. But we'll be creating content at All Lions. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. So to me, it's work, but it's the best job ever. If I wasn't going to be at the draft, what I would do, if I was a fan, I would dress up. I'd dress up like the Raiders fan in all Lions gear. I got belts. I got the whole gear. I'd go down there and have a good time, party it up, hit up Legends afterwards, and then see about meeting the lady of the night for a couple hours.
You know what? Let me hit that.
Hey, John, when you're there, because it's in Allen Park, and obviously everyone drafting is there too. The war room, obviously, Brad and Dan, they scream. They're very emotional when they make these picks. Can you ever hear them making I guess when they're screaming and yelling?
No, they're on the third floor. We're on the first floor. Okay. So it's great, right? Those videos, bang the table. Brad Holmes loves his draft picks, right? So what's crazy with Brad Holmes too is in 21 and 22, he rushed the first round pick so fast, they had to say, hey, hold on. We have a clock. We got rules, Brad. Slow down. So in 23, he slowed it down. He took his time and he delivered it. He's excited like everybody else because for him, it's the culmination of all his work. It's like Spencer at opening day. He gets to explode and have a good time and he gets to dance and do his thing. So it's a party time for him because it's relief when you get the player that you want. All the hours spent getting and reviewing the players, it's the culmination of his work. Basically, it's his opening day, and he celebrates too, like an excited Tigers fan.
Man, John, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. We got to do this more often, man. I just feel like you're so busy. I see you all the time with other boys, and I know you got a family and stuff like that too, so I don't like asking you on, but whenever you're down, whenever you got something you want to pump out, man, let me know. I'd love to get you on.
Listen, boys, there's no way I will deny coming on. I love coming on with Woodward Sports, any show. Listen, just message if you're interested, and I will make efforts to come on. I love coming on, talking football, talking about anything really, all sports too. So it doesn't have to be just Lions. Anything in the world of sports, pop culture, anything going on, I'm in tune. I pay attention to everything, and I love what you guys are doing. You guys are fun, putting out great content, and for you guys to invite me means the world to me. So anytime, listen, my time is valuable, and I wouldn't say yes if I didn't respect what you guys were doing. So just ask, and we'll figure it out. I won't deny you.